light of what's happened on the East Coast, I was wondering, when we're in those kinds of situations where the primordial body kind of kicks in, how can we create, or for instance, if people don't have any heat or light, I mean, how can we create heat consciously? I mean, maybe not.
Oh, we actually can create heat physically. Of course, the best and the easiest kind of heat is just gather up your friends and get close. You know, a little body heat. Remember that all these things have purpose, and we're not the victims of it. So the thing to begin with in a crisis situation like that is, how can I fix it? You know, how am I the gift of this? And what I love that happens so often in crisis situations is that people actually begin to think about, how can I help the others? You know, we always think that it's going to be the worst, that people are going to try to survive over everyone else, are going to be polluting and looting and all of that, when most of it comes to people saying, I have some water, I'll give you some. Are you okay in there? You know, people begin to actually become bigger than the self. And that's, of course, part of the purpose, is to show them that they are, that's who they are. And so there's always an answer, and many answers. How do I get some heat here? You know, how do I find a way to find the humor in this? I tell you, if you took 3 or 4 people and gathered up together, pulled all your bedclothes off your bed and got yourselves in a corner, within 10 minutes you would be laughing and laughing and laughing. Because suddenly all of that squeezing has to let go, and you'd be children again. And you would be glad for the one next to you, instead of saying, oh, you have cooties and don't get close to me, and you know, who's going to win the argument? Suddenly it's, bring it, come over here. And suddenly we're finding something to be joyful about. We're alive. And it brings us back to that point of, here we are, and there's purpose in that. Now the same is true of electricity. Just remember, for example, the initiation of Tibetan monks to sit in the snow, very poorly dressed, clad with almost nothing, bare skin, and melt the snow around you. So again, we can use our consciousness to focus our bodies. Our bodies, just like walking over fire, you say to your body, this is like cool moss. This is like cool moss. You'd be surprised. You're walking over the fire and suddenly you're going, this feels like cool moss. Because your body will create what you demand of it. So if you say, I'm going to be hot, then you can be hot. You can control where your blood goes. When people are really, really cold, for example, if you're caught in the snow, all the blood would go from your extremities into your heart. And so just by meditating and extending the blood out to your fingertips and your feet, you could create warmth. If I lived in the East, I would always have cayenne in my cupboard. And I would, even if you had no water, if you put cayenne on your feet, you would suddenly be warm. If you put cayenne on your hands, you would suddenly be warm. So there are so many ways to discover how, through your consciousness and by looking at around you, you can find the answers. If there's no candle and there's no way to create light, and then you embrace the darkness. You say, I don't have to look at the mess. I don't have to look outside myself. I can sit in the darkness. I remember reading, and I loved this guy, Tom Brown. And maybe you've heard of him. He is a great hunter and a great tracker. They called him the Tracker. And he learned powerful, amazing, miraculous things from an Apache tracker. And he could create any of these kinds of things. And one of the things that I learned from him, when he started at about 11 and he would go into the deep forest, into the darkness, where you hear all the sounds. And it's terrifying to people, and to go into nature at night when you can't see anything. And he would say, no, the night is the blanket. The night is the blanket that wraps around you and allows you to sleep, because everyone else is sleeping too. The bugs are sleeping, the birds are sleeping. And so think of it in that way. So one of the things that I learned working with prisoners was you can beat someone, you can torture them, you can do anything, but you can never touch the mind. The mind is yours, and you can choose how you perceive your reality, how you use it. So if you're there in the dark, you can find ways to make that wonderful for yourself. And I lost all my fear of the darkness after I heard that story. Think of darkness as the blanket that surrounds you. And so, again, it's really choosing. What's the advantage of being terrified? What's the advantage of being a victim? What's the advantage of saying, I'll never survive this? There's no advantage to that. It's not a good choice. And so you want to grab hold of your mind and grab hold of your consciousness, and through your consciousness illuminate your mind, because they are different, so that the mind embraces something that actually supports you. And let us uphold that all of these beings in the East, and I can feel them doing it, are finding ways to help each other, are finding creative ways to move through this. After all, the waters will recede, the light will come on. So what can we learn? What is the gift? I think the gift in those situations is always how sacred, how precious is life. How most of the things we think are so important, who likes us, who acknowledges us, how we're getting ahead, how much money we have, that all goes away very quickly in a situation like that. And that's a powerful gift. And that can set us free from so much chatter in our daily lives that we do not need.